Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome everybody to the October 23rd meeting of the Placerville City Council. Excuse me. Item 10 and 11, we have no ordinances or public hearing scheduled this evening, so we will move on at 7:18 to item 12.1. Under discussion and action items this evening, the item as submitted on the agenda directs staff to extend temporary use permit to 2012-02 for the Hangtown Haven through November 5th, 2012 to coincide with the start of the interfaith rotating winter shelter, subject to additional conditions of approval. Mr. Webb will begin with his staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council. Good evening. The item before you tonight is a consideration of a request to extend a temporary use permit that currently is in place for the Hangtown Haven temporary homeless encampment on Broadway. For some time, the city and community groups have been trying to find potential solutions to homelessness in Placerville. And one potential solution that would certainly cater to a portion of the population was to consider a homeless camp where those who are temporarily. Furthermore, the rotating shelter has limited capacity, does not necessarily have the capability of storing personal belongings or taking on the number of residents that may be anticipated. Also, something for council to take into consideration on this is that the rotating shelter doesn't provide a location for day use. And furthermore, some may see that closing of Hangtown Haven per the staff recommendation at this juncture may be seen as a step backwards. Place to live could go. A proposal for a temporary use permit was submitted to the city by Hangtown Haven Incorporated to provide a trial run encampment at the property of 1700 Broadway. In conjunction with the CRC or Community Resource Center, Hangtown Haven would be in charge of monitoring the facility, screening residents, and ensuring compliance with the required improvements to the site. At the July 10th, 2012 City Council meeting, staff recommended and the City Council authorized the issuance of a temporary use permit for a 90-day trial run to see if this type of a facility can be successful in controlling and improving the homelessness in Placerville. Subsequent to that, the various temporary improvements were made to the site to provide for very basic levels of services, including portable toilets and hand wash stations, site drainage with silt screens, picnic tables, garbage facilities, in a service vehicle emergency access drive into the site. After the required temporary facilities were in place, staff issued the temporary use permit on July 30th, and the expiration of that use permit was established at October 26th. The city has since received a request to extend the temporary use permit by Hangtown Haven. On October 15th, the city hosted a neighborhood chat, and on the issue of homelessness and Hangtown Haven more particularly. The key premise of the meeting was to provide information on how Hangtown Haven operates and to receive input from the residents of the camp, the organizers of the camp, but also surrounding neighbors. The meeting had a very high turnout. I know that the council members were present to hear that feedback as well. And considerable input was received from the community and the variety of stakeholders. A summary of the comments that were received is attached to the staff report this evening. The stories of the camp residents and organizers, I think, clearly demonstrated that a facility like this has strong potential to be a success in the community. Further, it was also made clear that there is community interest, drive, and capability to make it happen. Hangtown Haven, we believe, has demonstrated that a facility like this can provide an opportunity for a safer environment with support networks. At the neighborhood chat, several concerns were also raised about the facility, including pedestrian access and whether it is an appropriate site and setup for longer-term operations. Staff believes that Hangtown Haven has been a tremendous success in many respects and has been a positive step in the right direction. It has provided a safer environment for those who meet the qualifications to live there, which there are a number of, rules and bylaws that they must abide by in order to live there. And for those who are willing to abide by those rules, Hangtown Haven, presents what seems to be a safe environment that is self-policing in many respects, self-governing in many respects, but it moreover allows residents to concentrate really more of their energy and time on getting a leg up, getting out of homelessness, and less time and energy worrying about where they're going to sleep that night and if they have a roof over their heads. It also has allowed our police department to take a harder line of enforcement on the illegal camps in other parts of the city. Some of the concerns raised at the neighborhood chat with respect to the site location and whether it's an appropriate location for investment in longer-term operations are some of the key factors that lead staff to the conclusion that the request to continue with the camp should be granted only through November 5th, at which time residents would be directed to the faith-based winter rotating shelter. That would provide, in staff's opinion, the opportunity for the community groups in the city to regroup and assess future shelter options. Should an alternate location be explored for a shelter facility in the long term, the proximity and access to support services must also be heavily weighed. In the long term, exploring alternative locations for the CRC and Upper Room, for example, are not necessarily out of the realm of possibility. As with many public policy issues, there are multiple and complex factors for the council to weigh. Closing the camp for winter is certainly not without its own challenges, and staff certainly recognizes this, and I'd like to elaborate on a few of those. While many would participate, we think, in the winter shelter, not everyone in Hangtown Haven will wish to do so. If Hangtown Haven is closed, there is a possibility that some will go back to living in illegal camps. That has the potential to reinstate concerns that we previously held about health and safety of those individuals when they are outside of the more controlled environment that Hangtown Haven provides. Furthermore, the rotating shelter has limited capacity, does not necessarily have the capability of storing personal belongings or taking on the number of residents that may be anticipated. Also, something for council to take into consideration on this is that the rotating shelter doesn't provide a location for day use. And furthermore, some may see that closing of Hangtown Haven per the staff recommendation at this juncture may be seen as a step backwards. In addition to the input that you received here from staff and in our staff report, you also received input at the neighborhood chat. And along with that, you will receive undoubtedly input tonight. Those are all factors that the council has to take into consideration on this issue. Certainly there's a number of complexities to the issue, and staff is here to help answer any questions that the council has. It's a multifaceted effort on staff's part to review and provide input to the council on this, obviously with input from really all the city departments, police department, city manager's office, community development as well. So we're all here available to answer any questions that you might have. With that, I know that the public certainly is going to have some feedback for you tonight as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Are there any questions from the council on what Mike has presented so far? There's questions, no comments.
Yes, I do. I know the staff has been working diligently on this issue, and I thank you for all the time on that. Were there any other recommendations that that we should consider.
We'll look at that. Mr. Morris, did you have anything else to add?
Yeah, can I add to that? And I want to thank Mike. We've been working closely on this, held several meetings over the last couple of weeks, as well as Chief Nielsen on this item. My only thing to add to that, Mike gave an excellent report, and at the end he emphasized some concerns that come up with closing Hangtown Haven. We're well aware of those. So we are prepared to offer to the council for consideration. You have our recommendation, but as an alternative, an option that would leave Hangtown Haven open through the winter. Our recommendation would be to consider something in the neighborhood of a 3-month approval of the temporary use permit, and it could be evaluated from a time period going forward. And it's my understanding that this has potential to eliminate some of the problems. Some of the concerns we have now with leaving it open will still exist, and we'll have to continue to deal with those. However, as Mike mentioned, closing it does have the potential of taking a step back, and we have a concern with that. Obviously, as he mentioned, this is a policy decision, we believe, and it's weighing the pros and cons on both sides and where we go. One measure that we recommend strongly in this, and I think it came out strongly in the neighborhood chat, is that Hangtown Haven has been a success, and I don't think any of us on a staff level or council, I don't think we can really disagree with that. However, another point that came out fairly clear in that I felt, and most of us felt anyway, is that the location where it is at currently is not the correct location for the camp. There are too many difficulties that were brought up at the neighborhood chat with that location. It is a good location in reference to its location, proximity to the other services, and therefore if it is moved, perhaps those other services need to move also. And that's a key consideration that we need to look at. Along with this, therefore, along with this recommendation or this consideration for continuing the temporary use permit, our recommendation, and I think we have agreement with the operators of Hangtown Haven, is that it would only continue, the maximum it could continue would be 1 year from November of this year. In other words, November of 2013 would be noted that it would have to close down at that date, and that gives us 1 year to come up with a suitable alternative so that we don't go backwards. But under no means, because of the concerns that we note at this location, would it continue after 1 year from this date. So that is an alternative that council can consider tonight. Staff is willing to work with you on that and put that into play if it's council's desire.
All right. Any questions for the alternative that Cleve has just presented to us? For Cleve.
Yeah, I would assume we'd want to do some kind of a 90-day review, every 90 days review progress and make sure that we're on track and we're not just pushing it out so that in a year we have to make another decision. That without some kind of a proper plan in place, a significant plan, in other words, a substantially developed plan or a substantially developed plan for that site. That's what I'd want to see a year from now at least. I mean,
and that's why I noted
and progress along the way.
And that's why I noted that the temporary use permit would be issued on a 90-day basis, a 3-month basis, so that would have to be reviewed every 90 days. Doesn't necessarily need to come back to the council. I believe that the council can take action to approve it based on staff's review and et cetera every 90 days. If staff sees problems with it, we would have the right to revoke that permit. And at that point, that could be appealed back to the council. But staff would have, it wouldn't necessarily come back to council every 90 days.
Okay. Thank you, Carl. Just a second.
I'm
Councilmember Borelli?
not sure that 90 days, I'm thinking maybe that's too long a period, because a year isn't very long. And I'm thinking that maybe we need to do it on a, more frequent basis, just to keep an eye on things. And I know that you're going to set some new rules or regulations. And I'm thinking 90 days is too long to wait to see that that's being done.
Well, for example, the conditions that we put on there, those would have to be done immediately in order to issue this new permit. And I think those are pretty well spelled out in the staff report and the existing temporary use permit. So prior to us issuing an extension to the current temporary use permit, we've got some time here, but we would have to have them complete those items that are in the staff report. Is that right, Mike? And
Yeah, there's, I think, you know, at the council's pleasure, I think there's the items that we had outlined in the staff report as far as further winterizing the site, for example. And I think it's conditions
3A through D?
3A through D, yes, and as they're outlined in the staff report. You know, in our mind, I think we think those are necessary, whether the camp is to continue through the winter or not. But in particular, if it is, we think that it would be prudent to get on those immediately. Yeah, and those, for example, could be incorporated with any extension of the temporary use permit.
And my point is, the 90 days, I can say from looking at this last 90 days, it went by pretty fast, actually. And this doesn't mean that we're not going to look at anything. We will be constantly monitoring it through the 90 days to look for any concerns or problems. 90 days is when, you know, and with a temporary use permit, I believe, and I'll ask maybe our city attorney and also Mike, if there's a violation or a problem with a temporary use permit, it can be revoked at any time. I believe it. You don't have to wait for the end of the 90 days before you could revoke it.
That's
So
correct.
you have that authority.
May I ask, how much staff time this is taking? And what's going by the wayside or being kind of pushed back because this is a big undertaking, and I'm just curious to know that.
Well, is the question the existing staff time, or if the hope in the future the staff
Both.
time will be?
Both. I mean, if this is going to call for a constant monitoring and.
Okay, may I clarify, Mr. Mayor, perhaps?
Well, let's,
Okay, okay.
Patty, do you want
ahead.
a particular, would you like
No,
Cleve to
it-
answer that? Let's let Cleve answer your first question.
I couldn't give you a number. I will tell you, especially the last about week and a half, it has consumed a considerable amount of my time and our community development engineering director's time. Has it put projects on hold? I will note that one of the items that was scheduled for tonight's agenda was the review of the Department of Community Development Engineering, their reorganization that we are doing, and that was delayed till the next meeting, I will state, primarily because of this item. So there are some things that we've had to kind of set aside to make this work. Are there significant items other than that? That's the one that comes to mind. There's always a workload there, and it's a matter of prioritizing. This one came to the top at this time. My hope is, and my thought is, that once we get through tonight and get the new, if we decide to issue a new temporary use permit, I think our time will be reduced quite a bit. Now, there are other efforts in looking forward in terms of what the future holds to handle this. And I don't know, it'll be up to council what role staff plays in that process.
Okay.
I think that was a fair answer. Tough question. Vice Mayor Mattson, did you have questions for Cleve's alternate that he has presented to us?
Yes, I guess just a question of clarification to make sure that I understand this correctly. So if we extend this temporary use permit for a year with a sunset clause on the camp of November 15th, 2013, that means Hangtown Haven will not exist November 15th, 2013. And that gives us a year to diligently pursue better solutions, because it has worked, and that will potentially pave the way for us to find a more permanent solution that will move this issue forward. So is that basically the thought behind this new recommendation?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, well stated.
And I think staff time has been a lot right now. And yet going forward, I see my role perhaps as a private citizen. We've gained a lot of exposure on this. We've gained a lot of notoriety. There's finally a convergence of efforts here. And I don't necessarily think that it's not that city staff will be driving this issue forward, but as private citizens, we can get together and use this success to move a more permanent solution forward. Is that how you see it happening? Okay, so just kind of wanted to clarify that before we open it up. All right.
Okay, and if there's no other questions, Cleve, what would be your thought in this next year's time, if we move forward with this idea, to bringing our county and getting them involved, if not only for the significantly larger resources, but the dollars and the funding that they have available that we don't have access to, and having them start to work as a partner? Do you see that happening in this?
I think that's extremely important. I've had discussions with Councilmember Mattson regarding that. I know she's talked to some county officials regarding that. And I think that's key to a solution to this, yes.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? I'm going to ask the chief. Did you read my mind, Chief? How did you do that? That's why you're in law enforcement. Chief has had an opportunity to hear both Mr. Webb's staff report and Mr. Morris's updated report with the addition of this item. And Chief, I would like to get your input on two things. One, the change that the successful operation of Hangtown Haven has had on your patrol duties, and then also your thoughts on the new proposal of a one-year extension, looking for a more permanent location.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Be glad to do that. First of all, there has been quite a bit of success, okay? The success we have was outlined in terms of we have been able to take a hard line on illegal camps and eliminate a variety of camps in a variety of areas in the Broadway area and other surrounding areas. That's been really positive. What it has shown is that these are some of the right ideas, but let me just say this, I do support the staff report. We participated in that. We selected the closure date, I think for some very valid reasons. These are some of the right ideas, but the wrong location. I'm very concerned about that. I believe the camp has served out its purpose as a temporary facility for dry weather conditions. I'm concerned about the wet weather conditions, the dark conditions. I do believe the rotating shelter is the better solution for the winter activities. I'm particularly concerned with the roadway conditions, and I feel I have to advise you of some of those situations, and the camp has exacerbated that. It's the no sidewalk situation, there's no shoulders, there's no lighting, there are traffic hazards. I'm very concerned about that section of Broadway. It's not just a side road, it's a major artery road for our community. And again, the camp has exacerbated those problems. We have noticed an increase in the traffic and pedestrian issues in that area of Broadway. It's slightly before the camp and during the camp, and I know that some of it exists irregardless of the camp, but it's a problem that I have. The other thing that's on my mind right now for consideration is if the council does decide to grant a further extension, the other issue I think that is important from a public safety standpoint is we would request that you reinforce that you make a condition of the temporary use permit that sex offender registrants under 290 of the Penal Code not be allowed to be at that site. Under 3003.5 of the Penal Code, the site is less than 2,000 feet from a park, Lumsden Park, and a school, El Dorado Adventist School. So those are considerations, and to answer your question, what my position is. I think it's been successful. I think it's the wrong location. I think we need to be working towards other solutions. I'm concerned about the winter operation, and I think that needs to be taken into consideration as well. Thank you.
Questions for the chief on items that he has just presented?
What was the penal code again, Chief?
3003.5.
3003.5?
Correct.
Thank you.
Councilmember Borelli?
No, I think the chief's opinion's pretty well expressed mine. So I'm just so concerned about the safety up there. And according to some of the things that I've heard, folks that have talked to me and everything, they're saying that because this camp, however successful it is, that it's also drawing other folks up there in that area who don't live at the camp, but yet it's increasing the volume of people that are using that, and it just is a concern. That's and I also am very concerned about folks living out in these horrible winter conditions. I just don't see how they can do it, but anyway, that's.
Thank you, Councilmember Borelli. Councilmember Hagan, did you have any questions regarding the chief's report? Thank you, Carl. Chief, I just had one regarding the sex offenders. Do we know that at this time, are there any registered sex offenders in the camp currently?
There are.
All right, thank you. Okay, now we have heard from Mr. Webb, Mr. Morris, and Chief Nielsen on this item. If there are no other questions from council members to staff, Mr. Driscoll, do you have any comments on anything that has been presented so far?
Not at this point, Mayor.
All right, very good. Thank you very much. I'm going to open this up to the public now and invite the public to come forward and speak. I would ask that we set a couple of ground rules. One, to be respectful to everybody's time. Everyone is, of course, welcome to address the council. However, to save ourselves time, I would ask that we don't need to have 100 people get up and say the same thing, for example. So if I don't know if there's any organized presentation this evening, could I ask Mr. Edwards, perhaps, are you aware of an organized presentation?
Just me,
Okay.
and I'm not very well organized.
All right, sir, if you would go ahead. I'm going to ask most folks to limit their comments to 3 minutes. That I'm going to go ahead and I'll waive that restriction on you because you are the city's advisor and you have obviously been working since day one with Hangtown Haven. So if you'd like to go ahead and address what you've heard this evening, and I think maybe perhaps especially noting the additional information that Mr. Morris has presented to the council.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and members of the council and members of the staff. Thank you for this opportunity. First of all, we no longer accept sex offenders into the place. They're not allowed, so that's no longer an issue. I'm a little confused because you haven't made a motion yet on which one of these you're heading towards, so I'm not quite sure how to address that. I will address it assuming you're going to accept the second proposal.
But we would certainly like to hear your thoughts on what Mr. Morris has
Okay.
presented. Because I think as it's been pointed out, we've been working I think myself anyway, we've been working all weekend and responding to numerous emails and phone calls, and it's been in a very fluid situation.
Yes, I know, thank you. Well, then I'm going to address the second part of it. With your permission, sir, I'd like to read a short letter I have written to Mr. Moore.
Certainly,
And
go
then
ahead.
pass it-
Yeah, and if you could
and
just
pass
make
it
sure
to
the
him.
clerk gets a copy.
This is a letter to Placerville City Manager. Dear Mr. Morris, Hangtown Haven accepts and supports your second recommendation to the City Council that the property the homeless shelter occupies at 1688 Broadway be given a special use permit allowing the encampment to remain in operation until November 15th, 2013. We also understand that Hangtown Haven, Inc. will work with other agencies, both public and private, to find another location on which to set up a temporary encampment and move out of the 1688 Broadway site before that November date. I also understand that I will work with your departments with our available financial resources to modify Hangtown Haven as required by these departments. I am prepared to work as you direct to maintain the site in appropriate condition for the winter. The homeless men and women living in Hangtown Haven have asked me to thank you, Mike, Webb, Chief Nielsen, and all in your department who have worked tirelessly with us to identify a solution to the issues that have been raised about our temporary homeless shelter. The shelter has been a success, but we will not lower our expectations or reduce our efforts to keep the site clean, safe, and organized for the next 12 months. We look forward to our continued collaboration with members of your department and the City Council. Thank you again, sincerely, et cetera, et cetera. I would like to address our supporters here behind me. The motion, the proposal as written, second one, extending it to 2013, now before the board, supports our position of keeping Hangtown Haven open for this winter. Consequently, in the interest of time, I would like to reflect what you said, sir. Please, to our folks here, do not rehash the many issues that we have brought up before and that the council knows very well. But instead, I would like all the homeless people behind me and all that support the Haven, please stand up now and wave a thank you to the council for what they have done. Again, we thank all of you for your support and efforts on behalf of the homeless and of the citizens of Placerville. So now let's get to work and together find a permanent location for the homeless people in our society. Thank you. That's all I have prepared. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. Just a second. Let's see if are there any questions from the council? Any comments, Mr. Edwards? And thank you for that letter. We appreciate it. I think it very clearly states the intent of the community. Thank you, sir. Is there any member of the community, yes, of the audience that'd like to come forward and address the council? I would ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes. And please state your name for the record and for our home audience.
Hello, I'm Marie Cook. I'm Operations Manager of the Community Resource Center. We work hand in hand with Hangtown Haven, Inc. We do all intakes and referrals to the camp. I just want to reiterate a couple things. We no longer give referrals to any sex offenders. This is a fact. We do all the referrals. They don't get one. The problem on the street at Broadway. I understand that the homeless at the camp at Hangtown Haven will be using the back door coming out around by the Taqueria and not even be on Broadway until you get to the Taqueria where there is a vast area to walk. So we have, I think, solved that problem also, which I wanted to reiterate to you, because that was a problem, I think. However, we still do have other people who are homeless who are not at the camp, that regardless of whether the camp's open all winter or not, they are still going to be walking up and down Broad Street because they do not have the sense of community and peer closeness that the Hangtown Haven homeless community has. They watch out for each other, they follow the rules, and I do not think winter's a problem. They have sleeping bags, which have been provided to them, that they can sleep in up to 20 degrees or lower on snow, and they will not freeze to death. They have put all their tents on pallets. There's no water gets in their tents. The drainage is done. I have gone through the camp and just have seen the things that the improvements, and I just wanted you to know that we have thought about the winter and everything's been addressed in that manner. And the Community Resource Center stands right beside Hangtown Haven to help the homeless as much as we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cook. Appreciate your comments. Is there another member of the public that would like to address the council? If you could, please state your name for the record.
Hi, my name's George Lowry. I live here in the city of Placerville. 3 thoughts occur to me. If we do end up having this 1-year timeline, I think we need to seriously engage the county to let the county know that the city does not regard within the city limits as the only possibility for candidate locations. With regard to Patty's comment, I'm very sensitive about staff time demands. I often find myself in that very situation. So I would suggest that the stakeholders in this, the people most likely to be best served by this,
carry his gear for him. Because of this dilemma, I looked to several grocery stores to find a shopping cart that he could push his belongings in, but no one was willing to provide that. The kindness of one doctor on staff did provide him with a seated walker where he could push his belongings. I was found out the next day at hospital, I found out that he was released. It was 40 degrees outside, and I can only imagine what happened to him. He probably wobbled out to the forest, tried to pitch a tent on crutches with a really bad sprained ankle that should have been non-weight bearing. As a medical professional, I've talked to many of the case managers. We feel relieved that Hangtown Haven is open. We feel that it should remain open during the winter time. We feel that we're not just afraid that people will fall, we're afraid that people will get pneumonia. The people that come into my hospital are many of these folks. I've seen many of them have been my patients and so forth. I'd rather have them together as a group so they can be safe and they can get medical attention, they can look out for one another. So I do represent some of the Marshall staff, and I'd like you to take that under consideration. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. If you could, please give us your name for the record.
My name's Eugene Lambert. I'm a member of the Hangtown Haven. Been there since almost the beginning of this thing, and you know, I've been homeless for a few years. Been living in a tent. I've had snow in my tent. I've had water in my tent. I've had rain in my tent. The people that run this place have worked hard to put this together. Art, Ron, some of the other CRC staff members, they've worked hard. We've all worked hard to do this. You know, it's become a safe place. That's why it's called a haven. It's our haven. It's our home. You know, we don't want to leave here, you know, regardless of how some of the council might feel or some of the issues that come up. We've come up with solutions to the problems of staying dry and warm. You know, we help each other out. We help each other cover our tents. We help each other keep warm. If there's a medical issue or there's somebody sick, we take care of it. If there's other issues like alcoholism or violence or anything like that, we take care of it. You know, we've got the support from the police station. We've got support from our probation officers, our parole officers. Everything's good. It's right here in the community. It's right combined in one area, so it doesn't have to be all spread out over the town. Yeah, you have a little issue with the road. I don't know what to do it. Even if we're not there, there's still going to be an issue because that's where they're going up there to eat. They're still going to have that problem. You know. We've worked hard to make this thing happen. The community comes in there all the time. They come in there with clothes and food. It's just wonderful. The churches are wonderful and everything that come in there and help us out. You know, we'd just like you to support us, man. It's our home.
Thank you, Mr. Lambert. Appreciate your comments. Is there anyone else wish to address the council? Good evening.
Good evening. My name's Kenneth Green. I'm part of the Hangtown Haven Community Council. I'd just like everybody to know that since this place has started, we've all become family. Some of these people have come from deep in the woods, and some of them didn't have much to say to anybody when they came out. And a lot of people think and are afraid of them, think they're strange. These people have learned to open up to us. They became family to us. And if we close down, these people are going to go back in the woods, and we might not get them back. We might lose some of our society. These people call this home, and we all trust each other. We're like brothers and sisters. We need this place, and we worked hard for it. I think we deserve at least an extension. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any other member of the public? Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Cynthia Estes. I'm coming in rather late to this problem. I have the unique perspective of having been a volunteer at the Community Resource Center as well as an employee for the Placerville Police Department. And I'd just like to offer my help in any way I might with Vice Mayor Mattson and anyone else who's working on this to perhaps work with the county. I have the perspective again, I believe, of the police department's way of looking at it and understanding the public safety view. And also, I have worked in the last 2 years in public health, so I'm a little familiar with that area and in some grant writing and things like that. So I would like to make myself available to help in any way that I may. I definitely support the effort, and I realize that it's taken a lot of work from a lot of people, and especially when I thank the chief, as I know he has a lot on his plate, and it takes a lot to get something like this together. So please, I'll leave my contact information. Whatever I can do, I'd like to offer my help. Thank you so much. Appreciate your support.
Thank you, Cynthia. Appreciate your offer. The vice mayor was writing your name down in
I've got her number.
indelible ink. Good evening, sir. Could you
Hello,
state your
yes,
name?
my name is Steve No. I'm a Placerville resident. We're coming into the holiday season. I can't see pulling the rug out from under these people's feet. So that's my point.
Someone else like to address the council on this item?
My name is Chris Johnson.
Could you restate your name in the microphone?
Chris Johnson.
Thank you.
I have been working with Marshall Hospital for 10 years. I am a member of Cold Springs Community Church, and I'm also a member of the Mercy Way Rescue Mission that is opening October 27th. We are placed right next to the taqueria, and we are before CRC in the upper room. We are going to be the hub for all of the nomadic shelters for this winter. We work every week with Mercy Way Rescue and the Haven. I have been able to become very well acquainted with the people at the Haven, with Janice and Tom at the CRC, and watching the community come together, all the churches come together, seeing these people becoming a community, a unit, a family, taking care of one another. I see people coming into the hospital all the time that don't have a place to go. They have no insurance. And watching them together at the actual Haven, they take care of one another medically, physically, emotionally. They connect. And I think having that safety net and helping them get back on their feet, giving them a place to actually have a hub to where they can leave their belongings and actually get a job. I've seen them come and go from work, dirty from working all day long, and knowing they have a place to come at night and have food. They cook for each other, they clean with each other. And watching that and watching them grow is allowing them to have the chance to get back on their feet. And giving them that 1 year of time to be able to do that is a huge, huge gift and of such a blessing of God. And I just want to thank you for allowing it to happen and just giving us a chance to continue with our efforts. So, that's it.
Thank you for your comments. Any other member of the audience like to address the council on this? Seeing no one else coming up to the podium, I'm going to go ahead and close the public comment. Bring it back to the council for discussion. We have heard, again, a pretty clear and concise message this evening from a variety of citizens, members of the camp, and advocates. Comments or questions? Carl?
I was going to just suggest that we open it with the motion
Okay.
to,
Did you have a staff question?
No, not a staff question.
Okay, go ahead, Carl.
she wanted to do it. Go ahead, Vice Mayor Mattson, go ahead.
Well, she's been working on
Councilmember Hagan
She's been
yields the
working on it.
floor
I've
to
been
the
writing
Vice
stuff
Mayor.
too, so I'll do the First
Okay,
Amendment.
you can add my amendment. I do a few comments first, though. I don't know if.
Well,
is that okay?
let's, we can get a motion going.
Go ahead.
I just have one comment too, that I'd just like to make clear to the folks that this whole thing started 3 months ago and was presented to us 3 months ago. And in no way are we up here to, I think somebody said, throw everybody out in the cold. This is not what this is about. We were asked to participate in this on a 3-month trial basis, and we agreed to it. And so that's what this is a follow-up to that. It's because the way it was presented to us at first was to see if it would work. So this is what our understanding from the community chat the other night, from the things that are told to us tonight. You know, we had to explore all these things, and from the items that the chief mentioned, concerns, because there's yay and nay. Even though this is wonderful, and my heart breaks for some of the stories that I've heard and what you folks have told us, and I certainly I want to make your lives as better as well as I can as a council member. So we're not out here to destroy you or destroy the camp or anything else, but we have we have duties too to consider, and I hope you guys understand that too, that we have legal obligations as a governing body. And so that's why we're having to consider both sides of the story, you know, both sides of this, what we're going after. So I just wanted to make that clear, that this is why some of the questions we're asking and the input that we're getting and the yays and nays, we have to consider it all. So I hope that you understand all that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Borelli. Vice Mayor Mattson?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor Acuna. And point well taken, Patty. There's a lot to consider always. Absolutely. As I've been wrestling with this issue it really consumed my thought for the last week. I came across this quote that I think speaks to the matter of this. It's from John Dulles. He's a former Secretary of State. And he writes, "The measure of success is not whether you have a tough problem to deal with, but whether you have the same problem as you had last year." And you know, doggone it, we don't have the same problem as we had last year. And that energizes and encourages me. We have made tremendous ground here, and it's because of all of your efforts, from the police support, from the staff support, from Hangtown Haven Incorporated, from the Community Council, from the CRC, from the churches, from the community. It has been a concerted effort to make this work. And without everyone pulling together, this could have exploded in our face, but it didn't. And so our task now is to hear the resounding message that, yes, this model does work. It is working. And we have a community that is willing to make it work. I love what Larry said at our community chat. You know, there are jurisdictions like Sacramento that are having challenges. We are not Sacramento. We are City of Placerville, and we are El Dorado County, and we are different. And so I think that's very important to keep in mind. The reason we have a sunset clause, though, is this is not the right location. I think we have all agreed to that. So our challenge now is to use this one-year gift and channel all of our efforts to finding a more permanent, correct solution based on this model. And I pledge as a private citizen to use my time to work vigorously with all of you to come up with a permanent solution this next year. And just so you know, I will be meeting with the El Dorado Community Foundation this next week, and we'll be strategizing. This is not something that we're going to put on the back burner. It is something we are going to be moving diligently forward if the council decides for this one-year extension. And for those people that are opposed to Hangtown Haven, we understand the limitations with this location. We hear you. And I would ask any of those that are listening tonight or that have written in the paper that don't like this location or even this concept to work with us to find a better solution. Because I can't solve this problem. I can't come up with a permanent shelter, a better solution. But we can all do it together. And I pledge to work with you diligently this next year to make that happen. So with that, I would like to make a motion, and then we can discuss it. So I move that the City Council directs staff to extend temporary use permit 2012-02 for Hangtown Haven through January 25th, 2013, incorporating additional conditions number 3A through D as outlined in the staff report, as well as a condition of approval clarifying that registered sex offenders are not permitted to reside on site pursuant to Penal Code 290 and 3003-5, and pursuant to condition of approval number 9 of temporary use permit 2012-2, authorize the city manager to deny or extend further extension requests for the temporary use permit beyond January 25th, 2012 in increments of up to 3 months, but in no event shall the use extend beyond November 15th, 2013. And the City Council finds that this temporary use permit is exempt from environmental review pursuant to Section 15304 of the CEQA guidelines. That's my first motion. I have a second motion. Oh,
You need-
oh, sorry, I'm sorry. Yes.
Slow down.
Got all that? Wait.
Is there a second to that motion? I should make her repeat it.
I'll second that. I just want to see it in writing, so. No, I'll second that, and
right,
it's a lot
let's-
better than mine. Mine was just a lot simpler.
All right.
Wendy has a little, tell him.
We have a motion on the floor to extend the temporary use permit for 90 days with subsequent extensions as permitted after reviewed by city staff, and to adopt some of the findings that are in the staff report that deal with the winterization of the site, which those are pretty standard winterization requirements for any site that has had grading activity on it. Have a clarification that sex offenders will specifically be excluded from membership in the camp facility and operation. And I believe that just very briefly summarizes the nicely written motion. Discussion on the motion on the floor? Comments on the motion? Before I call for the vote,
Is there a part two to the motion? That was the question, or is it
There will be a
separate?
second motion.
separate
Separate
motion. I
motion.
think it'd be more appropriate. I have a feeling.
The only,
Comments, Councilmember Hagan?
yeah, just on the every 90 days, I would just like a report to the council as to the progress. Not that we need to take action, but it could be just a staff report. It could be 3 or 4 sentences long that we're moving along and things are progressing. Art's brought in the plans for the next step, or the next project, something like that would be fine. You know, storage, electricity, whatever. Just
At
some
that
kind
site?
of updates on that site and future locations. Because I think
that's
we
what-
have to look at, we have to consider this is going to be the site for a year, and there's probably some things that should take place if possible. And one of the examples I'll use is, I know PG&E puts up utility lightings on utility poles, and then bills the people that have the meter, local meter, but maybe there's a way to solve some of the lighting issues that are concerned right at the entrance to the camp. And I was up there this afternoon or this evening, and I didn't look for utility pole specific, but I just think that might be a simple solution to some lighting issues right at Broadway and the camp. There may be some utility poles in the area where they can drop a wire and put up a line. So, and I know Art's working with a lot of people for financing and doing things, and I just want to make sure that this camp is winterized and safe, and that maybe as a result we do look at some more permanent type structures around there. The wind took a pretty good dent in some of the canvases and the tarps last evening and the evening before. So just most of it looks pretty good, but we got to make sure it's maintained as we go along.
Councilmember Borelli? Comments on the motion?
No.
Any further comments before I comment?
Yes, I do have comments on council members, Councilmember Hagan's comments. I think we certainly want to take a review of the camp going forward to make sure it's safe and all of that. But it's my understanding that there won't be any more necessary permanent improvements to this site because it will be closed down as of 2013. So it's like, a permanent pad and that those energies will be channeled toward a more permanent solution somewhere else.
I understand.
So I just wanted to make that clear. Yeah.
I think mostly he was talking about Broadway, lights, maybe.
lights.
Okay,
if we
but I just wanted, in case there was a concern that we were going to be putting, infrastructure into that site. Yeah, channeling it, moving it forward.
All right, thank you. I would just like to comment, try and be brief, that the success of this camp has allowed a significant shift in thinking not only amongst the council, but I think also among a large number of community members. The fact that you are now a community and acting, in taking on those responsibilities is what allows us to consider the motion that is on the floor in allowing this camp to continue to operate. You can take great pride in having solved something that some very large cities have never been able to get a handle on. And being diligent and being persistent has definitely paid off. You had an extremely successful summer, and the comments earlier about it's not fair to pull the rug out is absolutely correct. I think what you have proven is that with your successful model, that the next best thing to do is find a better location for all the facilities that serve our homeless community. And that would be the CRC, the dining room, and the camp. Broadway is just not really the greatest spot. It's a busy road. It is cold in the wintertime. It's always going to have challenges. Hopefully in this next year, with the same level of diligence that you worked this past summer, that permanent site can be found and the development of that site can begin in your leadership amongst your own homeless community and all the advocates is going to be key to that success. One of the things that occurred to me over the weekend is that with or without this camp, you folks were still going to be homeless. And I don't think a great deal of the community recognizes that our concerns about the cold and the wet are things that you've been living with year after year. As you've tried to get out of homelessness, you've had to do what you've had to do. This certainly isn't the first winter that Placerville has seen. And you I'll say sadly, have far more experience in surviving that than I ever could. There has been, we spoke earlier about bullying and some of the things that go on, and there have been some tremendously coarse comments made about the homeless people and homeless people coming here from other communities. And in a perfect world, we would all be where we would be and we'd all be happy, and maybe you'd be happy being a homeless person. So it's not even fair to say that, but I think what we have to realize is that you are community members. We have a responsibility as a community to do our part. I think you all know very well now, probably better than a lot of the citizens, what our real limitations are. We are a small city. We are a small community, and we do work very hard, and you have proven that pioneer spirit again. Somebody said earlier that the town was founded in tents, and you were absolutely right. There are a lot of historic photographs that show everybody living in tents. So you can consider yourself pioneers again. So I would just say thank you for the hard work that you have done this past summer. You are obviously making a very monumental improvement for folks that are suffering homelessness in our community, and hopefully we will be able to stand with you as a partner, and we can bring in bigger partners such as other larger charities and certainly our county partners to help us find this ultimate solution. So if there are no other comments, I'll go ahead and ask the clerk to call the roll.
Mayor Cunha,
Aye.
Councilmember Borelli.
Aye.
Councilmember Hagan.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Mattson.
Absolutely aye.
Motion carries. Thank you all very much for your considered attention and your quick comments to allow us to move through this thing in a timely manner this evening. We have heard this a number of times. I believe there is a second motion that Vice Mayor Mattson would like to discuss.
Thank you. The second motion is I move that the mayor or other appointee of the city council work with the county and other agencies toward larger term shelter solutions and make that a priority of this next year.
Is there a second? Discussion?
Comment
before.
Is it necessary?
I'd like it clarified that
I'm going to suggest, what about the 2x2?
we'll find the appropriate solutions, absolutely.
That's what, I'm wondering if that,
Absolutely.
could be instead of, but you just want a motion just so be sure we'll do it?
To have it on the books that the mayor or appointee
But
will be
I-
working toward a larger
I'll go
solution
ahead
this year.
and second the motion, and then I'll ask for discussion.
Whoops.
I think the concern is, and this is, the county has Yeah, we can certainly sympathize with all the issues that they have at their level and their economy and the hits that they've taken, and they have homeless issues also, but they haven't been a real partner in this. And so I would believe the intention of this being a separate motion is to clearly state that in 2013, the mayor or whoever the mayor appoints will work specifically with either supervisors or county senior staff to set up specific meetings looking city and county-wide for an appropriate facility.